In this quiet night, while you're preparing to close your eyes, we'll take you to a place where no laws rule and no justice anchors. A place out in the open sea, where ships sway like bad dreams. No walls protect you and no window looks out onto hope. This isn't an adventure nor a fantasy tale about hidden treasure. It's a real life that men once lived beneath a black flag and a fear that never slept. Tonight, we'll dive into just a single day, a day aboard a pirate ship. A day that begins with you as a human and ends with you as something unrecognizable. Think for a moment. Could you endure even one day living among pirates? Don't expect cheerful songs, elegant hats, or a monkey dancing on a shoulder. Lie back, dim the lights, and let the sound of the sea seep into your mind. Now, let's begin the journey. You wake up, but not on a soft bed, nor in a room whose corners you know. You're lying on a damp wooden plank, ropes hanging above you, surrounded by a smell whose source you can't define. A mix of salt, sweat, and cheap rum. You open your eyes to find darkness enclosing you. It's not night, just a shadowed corner inside a creaking wooden ship that sways as if it's dying. No windows, no air, no privacy. You're not living in a cabin, but in a hollow between a barrel of gunpowder and a rusty chain. You try to get up, but your back groans from the rough wood, and your knees crack as if warning you not to move. The first thing you hear is shouting. No one wakes up quietly here. The sound is sharp, full of rage, as though everyone aboard has risen just to remind you that you're an intruder, that this place isn't yours. You reach to your side, nothing but a torn boot, if you're lucky. Otherwise, you walk barefoot on a deck full of splinters and dark stains of dried blood. Stains no one questions and no one denies. Breakfast is a hard biscuit called hardtack. It fights your teeth as if refusing to enter your mouth. Inside, tiny worms squirm confidently, as though they were here long before you. You swallow them down with a gulp of rum, not for pleasure, but to numb your stomach before the daily torment begins. You lift your head, and the sun lashes your skin without mercy. The air is so humid it feels as though you're breathing through a wet cloth. No one smiles. No one welcomes you. The captain shouts, his voice rising above the crashing waves. There's no time for rest or reflection. There are ropes to be tightened, cannons to be cleaned, and orders to be obeyed without question. And so, within the first hour of this day, you realize that you are not a guest, but a slave on trial. Everything around you, the sea, the ship, the men, is testing your ability to endure or to break. In the world of pirates, nothing shows mercy to your stomach. There's no time for cooks, no resources for luxury. What's served on the ship isn't a meal. It's a daily challenge for survival. You sit in line on a deck stained with dark blotches, waiting for your turn before a boiling pot filled with something of uncertain shape and color. They call it stew, but no one truly knows what's inside. Leftover bits of meat that resemble neither animal nor fish, and a few floating pieces of carrot if you're lucky enough to find them. The cook is a one-eyed man, his hands blackened with soot. His only cooking skill is keeping the pot boiling. He's not a chef, but a former prisoner spared from fighting because he lost half a foot. The bread he serves is anything but fresh, a box of rock-hard loaves reeking of mold. You tear off a piece with your teeth only to discover something moving, tiny worms living inside with confidence. No one complains. The rule here is simple. If you don't eat, you won't stand when the captain calls your name. As for water, it tastes more like the sea than a river. And if there's anything drinkable aboard, it's rum, rationed in small doses, not to quench thirst, but to dull hearts and silence regret. Meals don't bring people together here. No one laughs while eating. No one shares stories. Eating on a pirate ship is a punishment, a fight against your own hunger, a struggle with your teeth, fearing the meal will return later as a cramp that kills you in some dark corner unnoticed. That's how you eat when you're a pirate. No taste, no warmth, no salt that pleases the tongue. Just enough bites to keep you moving, nothing more. When daylight fades, night doesn't announce rest. It brings another kind of chaos. Sleeping on a pirate ship isn't comfort. It's a brief surrender in a place that knows no peace. There are no beds here, no soft mattresses, no pillows smelling of cleanliness. Only rough wooden planks shared with rats and fleas, and sometimes with a pirate who's been bleeding all day. The air is suffocating, the wood is damp. The cockroaches know the way to your bedding better than you do. You lie down, trying to ignore the endless creaking, the sound of ropes swaying, and the acrid stench that fills your nose and never leaves. You close your eyes and hear heavy snoring beside you, then a sound like a gasp. Is it a man dying, or someone weeping silently? It doesn't matter. All sounds blur together when you sleep in darkness, surrounded by fear and the sea. Even if sleep finally takes you, safety never does. You might be woken by a scream or a bucket of water or a slap from a crewmate in a fit of madness, or worse, a kick from the captain himself because he didn't like how you looked while sleeping. And so sleep becomes an adventure of its own, a gamble with uncertain odds. You might wake up, or you might never wake at all. Aboard a pirate ship, there are no friends in the sense you know the word. Everyone around you is either a temporary ally or an enemy waiting for his moment. Salt water doesn't bind hearts. It fills them with suspicion. They talk, they laugh, they tell stories, but no one truly trusts another. A pirate never shows his back, and silence at times is worth more than gold. Even laughter can be a trap, a lure set to make you speak, to make you reveal something that will later be used against you. You learn quickly that every word must be measured, every movement watched, every action paid for, and the delay in payment can cost your life. The law on board is written either by the captain or in drunken agreement among the crew, but its application is selective. Today you may be punished for stealing, while tomorrow, a man who stole more than you might be praised. Conflicts ignite quickly here. A long stare, an accidental touch, or a careless word slipping from your mouth, all can spark a knife fight or a fist brawl on the wet deck. Yet, amid all this chaos, there exists a fragile balance, as if they all know they have nothing but each other. They understand that the sea, for all its cruelty, is less treacherous than a companion who turns on you in the dark. That is the crew's law. No love, no loyalty, only shaky alliances that keep you alive for one more day. When you live on a ship that recognizes no law, justice becomes something else, something invented according to moods and tempers, sometimes for reasons that are never spoken. There are no trials, no right to defense. All it takes is for the captain to point a finger, or for someone to shout, "He did it." And from that moment, the show begins. One of the most infamous punishments is walking the plank. You're forced to walk to the end of a narrow wooden board extending over the open sea. Beneath you, the merciless depths and the circling sharks that may be the last to see you alive. They say it's a romantic way to die, but in truth, it was rare. Pirates preferred methods far more humiliating. They might tie the offender to the mast, leaving him for hours under the burning sun, his back bare, salt stinging his old wounds. Or they might dunk him head first into a barrel of rotten water while the rest laugh around him. One of the cruelest punishments was known as flogging until silence. The man would be whipped until he stopped making any sound, whether from unconsciousness or death. If you stole from the crew, your ear might be cut off, or your face branded with hot iron, leaving a mark of betrayal that never fades. But the strangest thing is that these punishments weren't always for crimes. Sometimes they were carried out just to prove authority or to chase boredom away. Punishment wasn't a tool for reform, it was a weapon of control. So when a man made a mistake, he didn't ask, "What's my punishment?" He asked, "How much can I endure before I break?" When you think of pirates, you imagine gold, treasures, and chests overflowing with glittering coins. But the truth is far less shiny. Yes, there were spoils, but they were rare, unpredictable, and often came at an unbearable cost. One ship might carry a fortune, while another holds nothing but ropes and salted fish. The difference between the two is a bloody battle with no mercy. When a merchant ship is attacked, the crew turns into beasts. They kill those who resist, drag the survivors barefoot across a deck smeared with blood. Then the looting begins, chests cracked open, barrels smashed, searching for anything to sell, to wear, or to drink. But the real surprise comes later, when the loot is divided according to the law of plunder. You discover that your share is meager. The captain takes the largest portion, then the officers, and you're tossed a few coins, just enough to buy a bottle of rum or a new knife. As for glory, it doesn't exist. Once the battle ends, everything returns to what it was. No one remembers who fought bravely or who bled silently. In the eyes of the sea, all are merely tools. That image we know from stories, the pirate with pockets full of gold, living on a tropical island, is rare, if not pure fiction. For in truth, the real treasure isn't gold, but the chance to live one more day. To dodge a bullet, a betrayal, or a sudden illness bursting through your body. Thus, in the world of pirates, treasure isn't measured by what you own, but by what you survive. On the sea, no sound rises above the waves except the sound of betrayal. Among pirates, betrayal isn't an exception. It's a constant possibility. From the moment you step aboard, the game of survival begins, and everyone watches everyone. Your comrade may smile at you, share his food, then whisper your secret in the dark, or steal a coin from your chest and swear he never touched it. How do you spot betrayal here? There are no spies, no devices, only noses that smell fear and eyes trained to read trembling faces. It starts with suspicion, a glance held too long, a whisper in a corner, or a hand movement hiding something. Then comes the test. The suspect is placed in a delicate situation, watched, provoked. If he slips in his lie, the truth unfolds. In this world, betrayal is never forgiven. Even suspicion alone can turn the ship into a storm of violence. Pity the man caught red-handed, dragged by his feet, tied to the mast, or thrown alive into the sea. But the worst kind of betrayal is when it comes from the captain himself. Then the balance shatters, mutiny breaks out, knives are raised instead of sails, and everything is decided by one rule. Whoever betrays or kills first lives. In the world of pirates, the enemy isn't always on another ship. Sometimes he sleeps beside you and smiles before plunging the dagger into your back. For centuries, the image of an old map marked with a red X has haunted the imagination of people. A wooden chest buried beneath a palm tree, filled with gold and jewels, and a tattered piece of parchment leading the way to it. But did pirates truly bury their treasures? Reality says, rarely, if ever. Pirates weren't men of long-term planning. They lived day by day, spending their spoils on rum, women, and fleeting pleasures, leaving the port before any governor or soldier could remember their faces. Why would a man bury his wealth if he isn't sure he'll live to see tomorrow? And why hide it when he's bound to share it with his crew or risk rebellion? The buried treasure as we know it was born from stories and writers' imaginations, especially after the publication of Treasure Island in the 19th century, which ignited the minds of generations and etched the myth into collective memory. Some sunken treasures have indeed been found, but they weren't hidden deliberately. The sea swallowed them during battles or storms. As for the idea of a pirate landing on an island, digging a hole, placing a chest, drawing a map, and burying it, It's closer to a children's tale than the life of rebels. And yet, the legend lives on. Perhaps because it offers hope that something still waits to be found, or because it represents what humans have always sought: adventure and reward, even if they are illusions. But if buried treasures are just myths, there were real faces that walked the wooden decks, raised the black flag in broad daylight, and turned the seas into theaters of chaos, glory, and blood. These faces didn't hide their treasures beneath the sands. They hid their names in the heart of the waves. We draw near to them now to drink from the thirst they left behind in the waters of the Caribbean. Those warm waters where islands scatter like pearls, and where the winds whisper secrets that never sleep. There, the wildest tales in pirate history were born. The Caribbean Sea that refused to be ruled from a throne, surrendering instead to chaos, to be governed by those bold enough to seize it or skilled enough to wield fear as a weapon. Among those faces was one never forgotten, a man who rose from the fog like a nightmare. His name was Edward Teach, but everyone knew him by a name that sent chills through every spine: Blackbeard. A long black beard covered his face, with burning fuses woven into it, sparking terror even before the battle began. He hid pistols and flintlocks under his coat and shouted above the waves with a thunderous voice, as if the storm itself fought beside him. His fame wasn't in the number of ships he captured, but in the legend that preceded him, the legend of a man who never bargained and never retreated. In 1721, Blackbeard commanded his ship, Queen Anne's Revenge, blocking the trade routes along the Caribbean coasts. He knew when to strike, when to negotiate, and when to vanish into the fog. But his end came just as he might have imagined it: bloody. In a fierce battle near the shores of Carolina, he was struck by more than 20 stab wounds and 5 bullets. Yet he did not fall until his body was torn to shreds. He wasn't alone. There was Bartholomew Roberts, the man who captured more than 400 ships, wearing a black feathered hat and enforcing iron laws upon his crew. And there were Anne Bonny and Mary Red, 2 women who raised their swords against the world, living beyond every law, hoisting the flag of death in a sky that knew no regret. Yet the Caribbean wasn't merely a slaughterhouse. It was a dream, a place where legends were born, where hearts danced between smoke and gold before fading away. And from the Caribbean Sea, as the echoes of battles fade, the winds grow still and the sails wear thin. In the next chapter, we follow the pirates in their final steps. When the rebels grow old, then the waves themselves write the end of their story. At first, the sea seems eternal, and life aboard the ship feels outside of time. Only waves, swords, spoils, and fleeting glory. But what happens when the cannons fall silent? When the hands that once pulled the ropes begin to tremble from age and pain? Where does a man go when the sea no longer calls him and his ship is gone? Many pirates didn't die in battle. They faded away in the shadows, consumed by slow diseases, constant hunger, and loneliness in nameless ports. Some tried to start new lives under false names, farming, mending boats, or guarding warehouses that smelled nothing like the sea. But can a rebel truly become an ordinary man? Can someone who lived by deceit and plunder suddenly pay taxes and wait in line? Others remained in dark prisons, their bodies aging in rusty chains, waiting for a slow, forgotten death. No dramatic ending, no farewell song. And some met their fate through small betrayals, a whispered secret, a quiet surrender to authorities who had hunted them for years. By the dawn of the 18th century, the world could no longer tolerate the chaos that pirates represented. The great powers united, hunting them down by law, closing ports in their faces. Navies were deployed not just for defense, but for revenge. The age of organized trade had arrived, and there was no place left at sea for nights of disorder. The world now preferred contracts over cannons, harbors over trenches. And so the pirates vanished, like salt bubbles dissolving on the surface of the waves. But their stories didn't die. They continued to be told at night, carried by the wind into the ears of those dreaming of escape from a dull life. And so, when we turn off the light and recall what we've heard tonight, we realize that the world of pirates wasn't just an adventure, nor merely a black flag fluttering atop a mast. It was a whole way of life, a life lived on the edge, beyond laws, roaring with rebellion, steeped in the scent of gunpowder, and filled with dreams that had no place on land. On those ships that rocked upon the waves, fear lived beside courage, loyalty beside betrayal, and hope beside madness. There was simple food, ragged clothes, and sleep shadowed by danger. Yet they laughed, sang, and stole moments of life that never belonged to them. In the quarrels that flared between friends, and in the cruel punishments carried out without mercy, the truth reveals itself. Not every man who held a sword was a hero, and not every man who captured a ship found glory. Many of them ended nameless, leaving behind only a few words in an old journal, or a skull forgotten by the sand on an abandoned shore. And today, as we live in a world of laws and borders, some may still be tempted to escape into their world. But remember, life among pirates was never a cruise upon the waves. It was a constant battle against the world and against oneself. And when their flame finally went out, it wasn't just because they were defeated, but because the world itself had changed.